Good morning. I'm Danielle, and welcome to your 7 a.m. Thursday gentle class. We're going to start in an easy seated position. So that can be cross-legged on the floor or simply having your legs out in front of you, whatever is comfortable to you. I'm seated on a block, so you can always put something under your hips. And once you find your comfortable seat, take a moment to check in with your breath and with your body. Take time to bring your focus inward. And notice if your breathing is fast or if it's slow right now. If you're taking deep, full breaths, filling up your lungs, or if you're taking shallow breaths. And notice if your breath is getting caught on any areas of tension or pain in your body. If you do notice areas of tension, imagine your breath filling those spaces, like you're sending your breath to those places. We know anatomically that our breath can only fill our lungs, it stays right here. But in the subtle body, breath and prana is life. And you can imagine sending it to the places in your body that are tight or in pain. And you can imagine with every exhale that some of that tension and pain could melt away. Allowing for more breath to move freely through the body. And we'll start from the top of the head and work our way down and bringing some movement in. So, very gently start to roll your shoulders in little circles. You can roll them back, you can roll them forward, or you can roll them one at a time. And shrug your shoulders up to your ears really, really tight. Exhale as you release your shoulders. Let some blood flow back into them. And once again, shrug your shoulders up to your ears really, really tight. And then release. And we'll take a few neck stretches. So reach your fingertips out to the sides and down towards the mat. They don't have to be touching the mat, but reach towards the floor. And drop your right ear to your right shoulder. At the same time, draw your shoulders down away from the ears so that you're creating space in the left side of the neck and shoulder area. Take one more breath here. Let your head float back up to center and drop your other ear to the other shoulder. Continue to reach down energetically towards the ground. Take one last breath in this pose. Come back to center. Loosen up the shoulders a little bit, and we'll start to bring some bigger movement into the torso. So we're going to make some torso circles. They can be as big or as small as you want them to be. So leaning forward with the heart and then circling around back, maybe getting into the shoulders a little bit. And then switch directions. And these circles don't have to look pretty. They're just meant to feel good, to start warming up the spine, and getting moving in different directions. And once you feel pretty even on both sides, come back to center. We'll take a seated side stretch. So from here, inhale your arms up over your head, biceps by your ears, and then reach over to your right side. So your right hand is going to come down to the ground. You can brace yourself there and reach with your left hand overhead and draw your shoulder back so that you're opening up the front of the chest. Now you want to create a lot of space and length in your left side body, but not at the expense of your right side. So if your rib cage is crunched down and you don't feel like you have room to breathe, lift up a little bit, lengthen your spine so that you have room on both side bodies and you can get full, beautiful breaths. Take one more breath here. Inhale, exhale, and then inhale back up to center and over to the left side this time. And same thing, draw your shoulder back so that you can open the chest, create length in both sides of your body. And the side stretch does not have to be very big. So just go to the point where you're feeling a sensation. And it might not be right here in your ribs. You might feel it up in your arm. You might feel it down in your hips. That's okay too, because everybody is different. One more. Inhale back up to center And release the arms down. You can shake them out a little if you need. And our next pose will be a seated twist. And again, we're going to go very gentle and make this a little baby twist. So I like to start with my right hand behind me. So my right hand is going to come directly behind me in the center of my back to act as a second spine to help me sit up nice and tall and lengthen the spine. And then my left hand is going to come to the right knee. From here, you can begin to bring your gaze over your right shoulder. But instead of using the muscles to twist and wrench the spine, think about your inhales drawing you up, lengthening your spine. And then as you exhale, you relax and you might drop into the twist naturally from there. So let your breath guide the twist. And come back to center, unwind. And we'll take the twist on the other side. So this time your left hand comes behind you. Sit up tall. Your other hand comes to your opposite knee. Start to bring your gaze over your left shoulder. And inhale to lengthen your spine. Exhale to relax into the twist. Unwind and come back to center. We'll work our way into child's pose. So from here, there's a few different ways you can get there. If you have a tried and true way, go for it. You can roll onto the side of your hip, swing your legs behind you, press weight into your hands, and then scoot your knees back where they need to be. Or if you are cross-legged, you can roll forward onto your knees and go from there. But bring your knees wide, like to the edges of the mat wide. And your big toes come to touch. Send your hips back to your heels. And then reach your arms forward. And you can stay here or you can rest your forehead on the mat. You can also rest your forehead on a block or a pillow or a rolled up towel or something. And this is kind of nice to take some effort out of holding your head up, allows the neck to relax. Child's pose is intended to be a resting pose. It's not always. Some days it can feel pretty active to me, but you're welcome to come into child's pose at any time throughout the practice. And this can be your place to reset, to reconnect with your breath. From your child's pose, staying low with arms extended, start to inch your hands over to your right side a little bit. We're taking another side stretch, but you may feel the sensation in different places or in different ways. And then walk your hands back through center and over to the left side. And walk your hands back to center one more time. One last big breath in and let it out in a big sigh out your mouth. And we're going to come up to tabletop position. So bring your shoulders directly over your wrists and your hips are going to stack over your knees. Take some organic movement here, whatever feels good to you right now. You might snake side to side or hinge back and forth. We'll move through a few cat-cows. As you inhale, drop your belly, lift your gaze, pull your shoulder blades back and together, like you're really pinching them together and you're lifting your tailbone. Exhale, round your spine, drop your head and release your neck. Actively press up through the upper back towards the ceiling. Inhale to cow. Exhale to cat. And move through a few of these with your own breath. So you might be going faster or slower than I am, but that's just fine. You move through with your breath. And move through one more round of inhaling to cow, exhaling to cat. When you finish that, to take a flat back and take a look at your hands on the mat. Spread your fingers wide, maybe even set each finger down individually and press it into the mat. And sometimes our hands get a little bit ignored, especially in yoga. So if it feels good to you, you can gently rock forward and back, kind of gliding, hinging through the shoulders and the hips to bring some movement into the wrist. Maybe you feel an extension all the way through the fingers. Move very gently and protect your wrists, but allow some sensation. And then we'll gently counter this by flipping the hand so that the back of the hand is on the mat, fingertips towards you, and gently hinge back and forth, just to stretch out the back of the wrists and the forearms a little bit. And you press each finger into the mat, feel grounded and solid in that foundation. So from here, we're going to move into downward facing dog. Don't worry, we're only going to do one of these today. But you can move your hands one handprint forward on the mat so that you have enough room. Press firmly into both of those hands. Tuck your toes, lift your knees, lift your hips up to the ceiling, and then pedal out your down dog by straightening one leg and then the other, alternating, warming up the legs, saying hello to the hamstrings. And then once you get your legs warmed up a little bit, you can bend them as much as you need to. You might be working towards straightening them, but they don't have to be straight. And likewise, your heels might be reaching down towards the mat, but they don't have to touch. What's really important is creating a long line from your wrists to your shoulders to your hips, through your back, one straight line. So lift your hips more than you think you can and melt your heart towards your thighs. From here, take a look at the spot between your hands on the mat and then tiptoe your feet up to that spot. So you're coming into a forward fold. You can have your feet hip width apart, or you can have your big toes touching. Let the top half of your body completely collapse over your legs. Let your arms hang loose. Let your head hang loose. You can shake your head yes, shake your head no, shake your head yes again. And as we roll up slowly to a standing position, take your time. Think about stacking each vertebra on top of the last, aligning the spine, keeping your head and neck relaxed until the very, very end when they are the last things to come up. And shine your palms forward so that your shoulder blades slide back and down away from your ears. Root down through your feet. Make sure you have a little micro bend in your knees so that you're not locking them. Maybe you even want to lift up your toes and set them down again, getting a good grip in the mat. And inhale your arms up overhead for extended mountain. Maybe you want to take a little mini back bend, nothing too crazy. Just a baby back bend. Come back up. And exhale, release your hands down by your sides. So now that we're standing, we're going to move through a few standing postures. And you can do these kneeling or fully standing. So our first pose is going to be a crescent lunge. So start with your right foot forward and your left foot back. Your feet are both parallel and your back heel is lifted. Bend your front knee so that you're coming into a lunge, and take a look at your knee, make sure it's stacked right over your ankle. You don't want it too far forward. You want to protect those joints. And you also want to make sure that knee isn't coming way in or splayed way out. You want it tracking right over your front toes. And then check in with your hips. Make sure that your hips are squared to the front of the mat. So if that left hip wants to open up, pull it back in for the time being, so that everything is squared up. And from here, I will show you what it looks like kneeling. If you want to take this kneeling, you just drop the back knee. So yogi's choice, whichever one's working for you today. Once you feel balanced and you feel like you have your stance pretty well set up, at that point you can inhale your arms up overhead. Exhale, bring your hands to heart center. We're going to take a little revolved twist. Nothing too extreme. So what we're going to do is tee out our arms as we rotate our torso towards the right side. So just a gentle opening, and your torso is probably not going to be completely facing the side wall. That would probably look and feel a little weird, but you're energetically opening in that direction. So you're taking an inside twist here. If you'd like to rest your arms, you can rest in your left arm on that front leg. But just like we did in seated, let your breath guide the twist. Inhale to lengthen your spine. Exhale to relax into it. And I'll switch sides so that you can see a little bit better. So I'm still twisted. We're going to come back through center so you can bring your arms up overhead and then open up to the other side. This time the left side, and let that left hip pull back a little bit too. So you start to open the hips, and this is what it will look like standing. Take one more breath here. Come back to center one more time. And then release the hands down. Bring both hands down to the inside of the front foot. We're going to come into a runner's lunge. So if your back knee is already on the ground, great. If it's not, you can go ahead and set it down. And then toe heel your front foot up to the right corner of your mat. And you can adjust your back knee as you need, and you can add some extra padding there if this is a little rough on your knee. So do what works for you. And you can stay right here. You can come down to your forearms if you want. This is a great place to use some blocks or props if you have something hanging around. And usually you want to keep your foot flat on the ground. If you do want to let that right knee fall out, just make sure that you come onto the knife edge of your foot as well, so that your ankle still stays in line with your knee, protecting those joints. And we're slowly going to move out of this pose. So bring your hands under your shoulders, move aside whatever props you might have, and start to toe heel your front foot back to center. And then as you shift weight backwards, you can straighten your front knee and take a little hamstring stretch here if you'd like to, if this feels okay on both your knees. And I usually like to have a block or something to balance on. And you can stay right here if this feels good, or you can actually hinge back and forth between your, like a kneeling crescent and straightening that leg. And then bend that front knee one more time. We're gonna switch sides. So however you'd like to do it, if you want to come back up to standing, you can. Or if you want to move that front knee back to kneeling and just rotate yourself. We're gonna come up to a kneeling crescent or a normal crescent on the other side. So step your left foot forward. If you're kneeling, make sure your hips are squared to the front of the mat. Make sure your front knee is stacked over your ankle. If you're in a traditional crescent with that knee lifted, energize the back leg. Send energy through the heel. And when you're ready, reach your arms up overhead. And our first twist is going to be to the left towards our front leg. So open up your arms. Keep breathing through your twist here. Inhale to lengthen your spine. Exhale to relax into it. And then inhale your arms back up to center and open up your twist to the other side, to the right side this time. Let your back hip pull open a little. Return to center one more time. And then release both your hands down on the inside of your front foot. If your back knee is lifted, set that back knee down. Toe heel your left foot up to the left corner of your mat. And find your runner's lunge on this side. You can release the top of the back foot down to the mat if that feels good, or you can keep the toes tucked to stay more active through that back leg, your choice. And whatever you did on the other side, you don't have to do the same thing on this side. You can make the pose different and make it work for you, because our two sides are very rarely exactly the same. You might need something a little different over on the left side. You might need a little more time on this side, or you might need a little bit less to feel evened out. But once you are starting to feel even, you can set aside any props you're using, toe heel your front foot back to the center, and then you've got the option to shift your weight back and straighten your front leg up to the ceiling. And you can stay right here if you want to, or you can shift back and forth between having a bent knee and a straight knee. And then bend that left knee one more time. Place your hands on the mat. Send your front foot back. And then shake out whatever it is that you need to shake out. If you want to extend your legs behind you and wiggle them out a little bit, you could do some hip circles. Whatever's feeling good here. And then we're going to make our way to seated. So you can cross your ankles and sit back from there. Or use any of the other ways that you know work for you. And our next pose is cobbler's pose. So bring the soles of your feet together. And you can experiment with how close to your body you want your heels. By adjusting that, you can change the intensity or the places in your legs where you're going to feel sensation. So decide where you want your heels, and you can let gravity pull your legs out and down towards the ground, or you can place some props underneath the knees to make this a more restorative pose. And then you can stay right here if you'd like to, or you've got the option to fold forward. If you'd like to fold forward, start with your arms overhead and then start to lean forward, leading with your heart and hinging from your hips. So you're moving with a flat back. And then when you reach the point where you can't go with a flat back any longer, release your hands down. And if it feels okay in your body, you can also release the head and neck and start to round the back. The other thing you can do to make this more restorative is to use some props to prop up your forehead. So that you're supporting the head, taking tension out of the neck. Moving very slowly, if you are folded forward, start to walk your hands back towards your torso to lift yourself up. And move aside any props that you're using. Extend your legs straight out in front of you and wiggle them out a little bit. Maybe do windshield wiper back and forth. And you can roll your ankles in little circles, whatever feels good. And we're going to make our way onto our backs for our final Shavasana. But of course, you can take Shavasana in really any pose that's comfortable to you, even seated. If you'd like to take a traditional Shavasana in corpse pose, once you make your way onto your back, you can fully extend one leg and then the other down along the mat with your hands down by your sides. Or you can take a constructive rest pose with your knees bent, feet flat on the mat, and a little bit wider than hip width, and then let your knees knock together. This can be nice on your low back because it takes out some of that arch, that natural arch when you're laying flat on your back. Once you find the pose that you want to spend Shavasana in, and maybe you need to do some last minute poses or move a few things out before you get there. But once you get there, come back to your breath again. Let your breath fill every space in your body. If your breath is getting caught or stuck on areas of tension, bring your focus to that area for a moment. Send your breath to it. Imagine the tension dissipating, melting away. Releasing before you move on. I would encourage you to stay in Shavasana as long as your schedule allows. There's about 5 minutes left of this 1 hour yoga practice. However, if you can spend more time in Shavasana, this is not only your time to kind of let your yoga practice sink in, but we rarely make time in our schedules for rest. And the rest is so important to power us up for the rest of our day. So I don't know about you. Sometimes I feel guilty about just not doing anything, but you are doing something for your body and for your spirit, taking the time to rest and renew. So please, I encourage you, take all the time that you can. But I'll close class here. And I want to thank you so much for sharing your yoga practice, for choosing to come onto your mat today and to turn on the computer or the phone or what have you, because some days it is a lot more difficult than others to simply show up, to unroll your yoga mat, to make the time for this. So thank you and thank yourselves for doing that. I always appreciate knowing that you're doing these classes, and I hope to see you later this week. Thanks. Namaste.